Good Tuesday to you. So today we're going to talk about completing the square. Now we're going to need to know about completing the square for the rest of the week. Okay, we're going to utilize the completing the square, the techniques. We're not going to necessarily solve by completing the square the rest of this week, but we're going to go right up into that point of solving from completing the square. And so we're going to need that the rest of the week. So we're going to need it on Wednesday, Thursday, on your final, all these things we're going to need it for. Okay? So completing the square is yet another way to solve or to factor when we create a perfect square term in our equation. Okay? So the first step, and again, I would be taking notes on this because we're going to utilize this, okay, is we're going to need to space out our equation. Now, some people are bring it to other sides of the equation. Some people are keeping on one side. I prefer, in this case, so I would say here x squared minus 6x, and then I would leave a space, and I would make that be negative 11. I'd move that negative 11 to the other side of the equation. And I got a nice little extra box right in here. Okay? And we're going to work on filling that box. Okay? So that's step number one. Step number two is we're going to factor the variable part so the coefficient on the squared term is 1. So I'm looking right here, and if that is 1, which in this case it is, I'm done with step number 2. If it's not, we'll do an example of that one next, okay? Then we need to make it be. We need to factor out just that side so that it's equal to 1. Okay? So we're good so far through this. Step number 3 is we are going to look at our B number. So our B number here is the coefficient on the non-squared variable. So that coefficient is negative 6. So B here is negative 6. We need to find B over 2 and B over 2 squared. Okay? So off to the side, I usually literally say, okay, B is negative 6. B over 2, so that would be negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Okay? And then I'm going to square that. So B over 2 quantity squared is going to be 9. Okay? Again, you can pause this video and pick it up if I'm going too fast for you. Okay? So I'm going to find those 3 values. I'm going to put it off to the side a little bit. Okay? Next, okay, the B over 2 quantity squared, that one is going to fill this space. So I'm going to have that space of positive 9. But what I've done now is I've imbalanced my equation. So to make it be back into balance, to have that equation be equal, if I'm adding 9 inside of that pink box, I've got to add 9 to the other side to bring that equation back into balance. Okay? We want to always have balance with our equations. Okay? So we have to balance the equation, which we did. Next, it says we're going to factor the left side. Well, when I factor this left side, it becomes a perfect square. X minus 3 quantity squared. Okay? Because I need 2 numbers that multiply together to be positive 9 and add to be negative 6. Well, those numbers are negative 3 and negative 3. So really, it looks like this. But we write it in square terms. See how we've created a perfect square by doing this. That's what we just did. We're completing the square by making a perfect square factor there. And in this case, that's equal to negative 2. Okay? Now, I will tell you that this is as far as we need to go in conics. Okay? If we wanted to go on, we would square root both sides from here. Don't forget the plus or minus, and then we can solve it that way. So I'll show you what that means here. But right now, for this week, this is where we would stop. Okay, we would stop once we've completed our perfect square, because that's going to be, like in this case, it would be either the x part of the center or the x part of the vertex, depending on what conic we have. But if we're going forward, if we're actually completing the solving by completing the square, we would take the square root on both sides, and the square root of the left side is just going to be x minus 3, and here's where that plus or minus comes in right there, and then we have I times the square root of 2 on that side, and then we just end up solving it by going x is equal to 3 plus or minus I square root of 2. Okay? But again, below this line, that's all solving. We're just getting to this step. We want, highlight it. Highlight it is good. We just want that term. We want to find that term and adjust our equations accordingly. Okay? So let's put it to use here in this one. Step number 1 says that we need to space out our equation. So 2x squared minus 28x equals negative 1. Okay? So I've spaced out my equation, which creates this box that I'm going to need to fill. Step 2 says I need to look at this and I need to factor out a 2 because now I have a coefficient there. So this is going to be 2 times x squared minus 14x equals negative 1. And there's my box. Okay? So all I've done is I've just factored out the one side that coefficient is on. I don't worry about the other side. Mathematically, I'm still sound. Okay? Now I look at this number, that's my b. I divide it by 2. So negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. I square that. And I get 49. So I'm going to add 49 into there. However, that 49 is being controlled by this 2 out in front. So I'm really adding 98 because 2 times 49 is 98. Okay? So I'm going to have to add 98 to this side. I can't forget, I factored it out, but I'm adding it inside this set of parentheses right here. So I need to still have control by that coefficient. Okay? So then this would become in factored form. This number here is what goes inside that's this set of parentheses. Okay? So that number, so here's a this number here is what I get from my b. This number goes inside the second set of parentheses. This number, the 49, goes into my first set of parentheses. And on this side over here, this would just be 97. Okay? And that's where I'm going to stop here because I don't want to have to divide by 2 and then square root and all that fun stuff, because that's the solving part. We are just going to concentrate this week just on getting this in for our equation. Okay? So I'm not going to worry about going on. Okay? So that's a shorter version, a quick video here, under 11 minutes. If you need to re-watch this video to take extra notes or to understand a little bit of things like that, that's fine. I would suggest re-watching it to become efficient at this. We will go over this in class tomorrow, on Wednesday and on Thursday, because we're going to use completing the square up to this step. We're not going to go any further and solve beyond this. We're going to stop right there. Okay? Thanks for playing along. We'll see you on Wednesday.